pushed that envelope?
I was pushed into the stairs.
Ungentlemanlike behavior.
Mix them two bitches up.
Whoa.
But don't tell anybody.
Highest of the high.
Samir, you know that ain't Sean Porter.
What was your first gig?
Random, weird stuff.
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
You know what I mean?
We are live. Liliana Ulloa. How's it going?
So far, so good. As good as we can be here in the quarantine.
I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. It's just such a pleasure because you kind of came on the scene on my scene, like on my personal timeline and like observation about the Twitter media, like so randomly, but you came with like the bang. You're just like, you know, you're so opinionated, and I just saw like, who is this person? What's happening? And that kind of happened, and I'm talking about Twitter because I'm on Twitter a lot, especially the boxing Twitter. And that happened a year ago, I think, or so, when I really started to like pay attention to them. Like I followed you and all of that, and I don't know. And all of a sudden, I feel like you were making so many waves in that regards in the boxing and the media. Can you talk about that a little bit? How did you get involved with boxing?
Yeah, well, I've been a boxing fan my whole life. Like diapers. My dad used to play boxing. We used to live in Mexico, so we had the antenna, and we would always be like going outside and switching it just so that we can get that one channel that showed the fights. And I would go to events, you know, fights at the Forum, fights at the StubHub. So I knew people from Instagram, like the boxing community on Instagram, and they'd be like, "Hey, there's tailgates. Come to our tailgate." So I would go to the tailgates at the Forum.
So what's a tailgate? I'm sorry.
What was that? I'm sorry.
What's a tailgate?
A tailgate is like when people stay at the parking lot before the fight start and drink and eat.
Oh, okay. I saw those people. It's funny. My English does not allow me to.
So I would be with them. Actually, Tom Loeffler dropped by a couple times.
Oh yeah.
And gave us cups
to
like drink our beer with.
Look at him, so supportive.
He gave us our cups, like promo cups. It was great.
Nice.
Yeah, and I met a lot of people there. And at the time, I was in my, I think, second year of college. And I met some media people, and it was True Boxing Heads, the website. I don't think they have a website anymore, just an Instagram. But one of their guys approached me and said, "Oh, you're going to school for journalism. Like, well, we need, like, staff writers. And if you just want to, like, write, and, you know, that'd be cool." And I was like, at the time, I wasn't thinking about writing for sports. I would write about the other things you talk about me being opinionated on. That was my goal, right? And I was like, sure, like, I'll give it a shot. And I mean, I'd be like, who doesn't want to go into fights, right? I was like, yes. So I did, and that's how I got started, basically, with them. But since they didn't have the website anymore, I felt like, well, I still want to write, and I still want to make content. So I'm like, let me just make my own. And like you started with, you mentioned earlier with this podcast, you started it as a hobby, but then you just get really into it and kind of passionate about it, and it becomes more of a rewarding thing to do. I just like, oh, let me start doing it, and I just been doing it ever since. At the time, it wasn't as consistent, like you say about me just coming out of nowhere, because I did. I would do things back then, but because of my school schedule, it didn't really allow me to go to, you know, midweek press conference, midweek workouts. Like, I couldn't do it because I was usually at school, and then fights. I just have my kids, so I wouldn't really be able to do as much. And then since I graduated last year, I was like, okay, full force. Like, it's time to invest, you know, more effort and time into this now that I have time. And then, you know, Corona happened, and here I am. What
was your first gig in terms of boxing writing? Do you remember it? Like an article, or what did you write about, or like the interview that you took?
I think it was actually the Scott Quigg, Scott Quigg versus Oscar Valdez at the StubHub.
And you had to write about it?
Yeah, I wrote. I really prefer writing. That's usually my goal. Like, I want to be a sports writer.
Okay.
But I know times are changing and people prefer video content, so it's hard for me to start having to adapt to more video interviews. And if I could just walk around with like the little recorder and just get quotes and talk to people, like a conversation, I feel like it would make me feel a little bit more relaxed, as opposed to standing there with a camera and feeling like, oh Jesus, like I have to think on the spot. It's different. I think because I'm more of a natural with writing, it's more difficult for me to be able to conduct a video interview, because I don't want to be in the camera, but most of the people are saying, you know, you have to be in the camera. And ask people all the time, like, which one is it? Because I get really confused. I don't like being in the camera. I feel like it draws attention from the fighter. Like, it's about the fighter, not about me. And then it just brings up weird comments, or it's just weird. Like, I don't like video content. Like, I do it because, again, we're adapting to this new digital media that is so freaking, like, popular now.
So let's get back to that moment then when you started, because I know that you started something that's called Chicana Boxing, which is your personal brand and channel for your boxing basically project. How did that come about, and at what point, like, after, I'm assuming when you were doing the box hats, right? Boxing hats.
Yeah.
You were sort of doing it just to try it, but you were not really sure whether you want to do it or not. You were still at school, but at some point you're like, it seemed like you took it seriously, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna start my own channel. Like, I saw like you had like this logo, this brand, everything was really thought out. I really like the name, by the way, Chicana Boxing. Like, because I don't know, I personally know what it is, and I feel like it was very authentic, and it was very like on point, and it was very like Chicana, right? So it was feminine. It was pretty cool. I liked it. How did that come about, and what kind of thought did you put into it, and what the whole project entailed?
Yeah, well, at first I just started with like an Instagram, because I would always use my personal Instagram to rant about boxing. Like, whenever a fight would happen, whether it be the judges, a specific round, or just for me to give my thoughts on it, I would always go on this huge rants in my personal account. And people would always tell me, just start like an Instagram just for that. So I did, and it got pretty big. It was like 15,000 followers the last time I had it. I don't have it anymore. I didn't like Instagram as much as I like Twitter, so I did delete that. But it was started just as an Instagram, and then I was like, okay, let me try to get into media, like being actually taken seriously. And so it was kind of a way to tell people, like, I'm not just some YouTube or some Instagram. Like, I do write, and here's my work. The thing that I struggled with and continue to, because again, I just started, is just trying to say, you know, I'm in this for real. Like, this is my work, and I guess building an audience that again, like I moved into video more because a lot of people don't read. And of course, if people want to read a certain article post-fight, I do mostly like post-fight, or, you know, fights like about like either pre-fight stuff, like previews, or post-fight, because I feel like if I write about something that's happening, somebody already read it on, like, we're finding out from journalists who have access, right? So I would just be rewriting a story that they said. And you can write opinion pieces, of course, and those are fun, especially for boxing fans. But I felt like it was harder for me to write about that stuff, not having really an audience. So, but I still write, you know, whenever I do a fight, that's my priority. It's not getting an interview. It's me finishing my article. And I usually finish it like 15 minutes after the bout's done, because all I'm doing is waiting for images to plug into it. So I'm pretty good with the time, but it is a little discouraging because I'm like, no one reads really. And if they do, they're not reading small websites. They're reading ESPN, Dan Rafael's, you know, his recap or his thoughts on it, or boxing news, or a boxing scene. You know what I mean?
Yet I do see a lot of compliments towards your writing from media professionals in boxing. So, you know, granted that you are highly educated in journalism, but you do have a talent in writing. However, yet I see you a lot in videos. So, like, when you are taking the interviews, right, when you are there at the fights, was that something difficult for you to sort of transition to actually come up to a fighter face to face, especially if it's a high profile fighter? Just basically talk to them. And I saw that you were speaking to the highest of the high profile boxers in the world, and for me it was just amazing how you kept yourself so professional and collected. How did you achieve that? Was it just you just naturally that talented, or you sort of trained yourself for that?
No, I struggle a lot to this day. My first match after this might be my last match that I went to was Jesse Vargas versus Mikey Garcia, and I was in Texas, and I was by myself, and I don't really talk to the media people that much. Like, I'm not this like outgoing person, so I'm just there, and there's a parade of boxers walking in and out of the media room. And it's really hard for me to like just walk up to feel like, hey, can I get an interview? I always feel like they think I'm gonna be like entitled, like, oh, who are you? Especially because I'm not pheno boxing. I'm not behind the gloves. I'm not fight hop. You know, they're just like, who are you? Like, who are you with? Like, is this just some random girl like trying to get an interview? So it is very, very anxiety inducing because I'm just like, I don't know how to approach them. It was harder at first, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like, okay, well, I have to do it. And I'm just going to do it. And I try to put myself in a trance where I'm like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to walk up to them and ask. And then it almost feels like a dream. Like I'm not really in there. After the interview is done, I don't remember what happened. I'm just like, well, okay. And nighttime to edit. But I feel like I'm asking questions, but in my head, I'm not really there. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain it other than that. But no,
I understand that.
I'm not that confident with it. It's hard to transition, but as I mentioned, we have to do video now. And just what I want to do is get video, but also attach it to writing so that it's not just a video.
One of the videos that went viral on your channel was the someone wanted to fight Amir Khan, and that was on your YouTube channel. Can you talk about that a little bit? How that happened? How did you approach Amir Khan in the first place?
It was actually. What was your last question? I'm sorry.
How did you approach Amir Khan on the first place, and then what happened after?
I believe that was at Mikey Garcia versus Easter fight. And it was the end of the bout. Everybody was walking around getting interviews. Mostly everybody was interviewing Sean Porter at the time. And I think Sean Porter was gonna fight Danny soon. I'm not sure, but people were really crowding Porter. So I'm like, let's walk around and see who else is around. And I saw Amir Khan, and I've always been a huge fan of Amir Khan, first of all. So I was like, oh my God, like I have to get an interview with him, especially Mikey back then was already talking about moving to the welterweight. So I was like, hey, like, would you entertain the idea? But it was so weird. Some people started fighting, bottles were thrown. I was pushed into the stairs. And at that moment, it was really like, do I want to do this? Like, what? I could just be, because at the time I also had an internship writing for a local newspaper in Long Beach. So I'm like, all I do over there is go to like community stuff and write about it or write PR stuff. Right. I'm like, do I really want to, like, I could have gotten like punched or something. Like it was really.
Didn't you get excited though? Like, I feel like I would get so excited, like, oh, like shit, there's fights starting, like, and I'm on camera, like we're actually filming this. I would be like all over this. Didn't you feel that feeling?
It's funny because the journalist, like Mike Baca, who writes for Ring. And,
oh yeah, great guy.
Yeah, I love.
I just texted him a couple of days ago, just asking like how is he doing, and like where did he disappear?
Yeah, he's writing for NFL actually.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great.
Yeah, so it was nice to hear from him too.
Yeah, and back then he was like, whoa, he's like, that's about to get so many views. And at the time, I don't even think like I had that many YouTube subscribers because again, I was focusing back then more on writing than like video.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'll upload this, who cares? And it got so many views because people were fighting. Yeah.
I mean, your other video that really, really got viral, it was like one of the Paul brothers.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what happened there? Because I think you got around, and I might be wrong, but I think you got more than 1 million views on that video.
Yeah. And I feel so conflicted about that because a bunch of my friends were, they're more connected to YouTube content, like YouTube vloggers, I guess you would call them. So they're like, wow, that's huge. Like, you got 1 million views on this thing. And I feel conflicted because I'm like, I wish my interviews got 1 million views, not like these people.
So, and there's nothing much. Well, let's give it a breakdown. What exactly happened there? Because I'm not into like the whole YouTube thing as well. But I remember someone approached the guy and said like, you're not invited anymore or something like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So also, I wasn't into that. So I went there because sometimes I collaborate with Fight Hype, and they said, hey, like go and like try to get us content. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll go. And I didn't know much about them. I was like, they're doing research on these guys. Like, who are they? I knew they fought in the amateurs before, supposedly, or some like just some weird stuff. So I was like, okay. And everybody again just crowded the Paul brother, right? Everybody was like on him, and this kid is just walking around. So I'm like, let me just get this kid and see what he's about. So I did talk to him, and as I was talking to him, one of the Paul Brothers team people came up to him. He's like, "Oh, you were talking smack, so you're not invited to the after party anymore." And they just start kind of getting in each other's faces, and I'm just like, okay, like I didn't know what to do, if to end it or to. I didn't know what to do.
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
Like, just keep it rolling, and I was like, let's. Just like I did with the American stuff, I'm like, let me just wait it out. Hope this doesn't escalate to like physical stuff, and then still get like finish off the interview. So my end goal is just always to finish it. But yeah, it was an interesting experience because that's the second time that's happened to me where people just
I know
start an application.
Somehow you're in those situations all the time. But I like this kind of trick that you do, right? It's like when you see that everyone's kind of swarming just that one person, all of a sudden you don't want to be a part of the crowd, right? You actually want to like take a step back and look around and find your own opportunity, find your own niche. I feel like that really working towards your like in your favor, and I feel like a lot of people should also think about that, doing that as well.
Yeah, like I really like just doing that. Whenever people are crowding someone, of course I want to eventually get, because that usually means they're the bigger star, right?
Of course.
Or they're the bigger name, and of course eventually I want to get to them. But I already know they're gonna take a while anyway, because it's like 5 media people and they all take lengthy interviews. So I'm like, let me just walk around. And also I like prospects. Like I feel like there's a lot of people who need, a voice to be
exposure.
Recognized.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, hey, like, let me just see what this guy's about. And whoever's there, everybody has a story. Everybody has an opinion. So I'm like, let me just get content. If I can't get the big star right now at this moment, I'm not just going to sit around and wait.
It's funny you mentioned collaboration with Fight Hype, and I was going to ask you, how were you accepted in the community of boxing media? I know that they were sort of like involved you and invited you first, but like I would, and that might be just me, but I would assume if I was like some old school boxing media and I was doing this for a while, or let's say like at least like 5 or 3 years, and then this person comes in and she's so bright and she asks all the right questions and she's going viral and everyone's following her and everyone wants to know what she's thinking about, and again, you're so opinionated and it's just like you have a real voice and authenticity, and now she's like making those, making the fire, making the waves. I would actually be like, who is she? Like, why is she stepping on my toes? Like, what's happening? But that may be just me. Were you ever encountered by hostility from your colleagues, or were they all welcoming?
No, yeah, a lot of hostility. I don't want to mention who, but it was also very discouraging because I always felt like I didn't fit in, because of course I'm not saying I'm this social butterfly who tried to say hi and just got rejected. No, but I heard things, and of course things get around. So I know that I'm not the most liked person, and also they're just dudes, like drama guys make rumors, and we had like a Canelo versus Triple G, the first fight, I believe. Like, I'm just gonna say it, Marcos Villegas, he's weird. Like, he started this rumor with my friend that, oh, she's like having sex with this guy, and the guy told me, I was like, hey, like they're saying that you're doing this. I'm like, really? And then later Tino, Tino, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he works with he worked with Marcos too. He came up to me, he's like, that was a joke. He's like, he only told him that to like just mess with him. Like, that's not true. So I'm sorry you found out. And then I confronted Marcos. I'm like, why are you starting rumors about me? Even if it's just to your friend to joke around. I'm like, that could get around, and that's like big. I'm like, I'm new to this. People can take that literally and just not trust me around fighters because they think I'm like having sex with people. I'm like, you can't do that. I'm like, I'm just starting doing this. I'm like, don't do that to me. And he denied the whole thing. And I was very upset. And then the next day he wrote me like a huge paragraph on Instagram apologizing. Like, yeah, it's true. I did make those rumors, but not to anybody else, just to my friend, because I wanted to play a joke on him because he has a crush on you. So I just told him you were having sex with this person so that he doesn't pursue you, basically. And in my head, I'm just like, that's still not right. So I didn't forgive him, and to this day, like, he's one of the people that I don't like. But everybody else, like, the girls are nice to me, which is what I care about, because I was scared of girls being catty or something. But no, Cynthia, who you had on the podcast, amazing. She's always been so supportive with me since day one, because I would see her also at the 360 promotions. And Cynthia was a person that I would see, obviously, hosting, and I would see her on The Ring, which is a magazine that I love to read. Like, I have a subscription. So I was like, wow, like, this chick, she's so awesome. And she is the most down-to-earth person. She talks to me. She's very encouraging all the time. And that was really nice to have. Especially
yes, and I
someone
saw
like
that. I saw that as well. That she's very encouraging to you, and she always supports you publicly. And I know Cynthia personally, and she's a great person, and she's a great professional as well.
Yeah, and I don't talk much to Michelle Joy Phelps, who you had on your podcast recently too, but I did identify with a lot of stuff that you guys talked on the podcast. And I do feel for her a lot because she's someone that I look up to, even though we don't talk, we're not like friends. We smile, say hi to each other, obviously, but I'm not, close to her, but I look up to her. She's what I'm trying to do. She started her own channel. She's growing her own, and she hustles, but there's always that weird, oh, she's a woman stigma that it's just different. I feel like she doesn't get as much work as she could because she's a woman, and she gets a lot of shit because she's a woman, because like it's no strange, occurrence that the people in the comments are always going to make comments about her appearance or just random weird stuff, right? We've all been there. We've all seen it. And people are always like, even when I'm online, people are always asking me, like, do you think she's dating someone? I'm like, I don't get why you guys care that's a woman.
That's like a thing in boxing, like not even only like about the women, but also about the men. A lot of, like, they all like to talk. Like it's always like talk behind the back and like spreading rumors. And when I first encountered that, like personally, like I encountered like people actually, I was like taken aback, like, whoa, like this is some ungentleman-like behavior for like a gentleman sport kind of thing. I was like, I didn't expect that, but like it's and the more I was in the industry, the more I realized, oh, like this, they talk about this guy.
It's
and
drama. It's like high school.
Yeah.
It's like this alpha male type of thing too, because I witnessed so many fights between media members, guys, or trying to get into physical, to where the promoters or the people, the PR people at events have to take them outside and be like, yo, shut up, like get out of here. And I'm pretty sure you've seen the videos too, viral videos with that guy Fred from Barbershop Conversations, multiple altercations with people. Like he's always fighting people. He fought Kenny Porter. Like they fight all the time. Marcos Villegas has fought that same dude. Not fought, but like they gotten into loud arguments. Like other media members that I don't want to name who are men. Constantly, there's just always someone getting in fight. And it's never the woman. It's always like the dudes getting mad at each other or doing this or doing that or being more catty with their content, because it's like an alpha male type of thing. It feels like they want to be the ones that get the most views and get the most content, and they will hog an interview and hog a fighter for like 17 minutes. Yeah, and then everybody else gets like 2 minutes now because of that. It's all about that. There's no respect also in the media community. Yes, we all want to ask questions, and they're probably going to revolve around the same thing. I try to keep it a little bit more different and ask different questions, but there's only so much you can do. Like, hey, how's training camp? Like, no, right? like, how are you feeling? They're not going to say, oh, it sucks. So I try to get different angles in there, but there's no respect. People will take 15 minutes, even though they say, oh, ask 3 questions and go. They won't do it. And most of the time they get away with it, and no one, like, they're like, whatever, like, you're on your own type of stuff. But as for the media, like, I don't really worry about it too much right now, if they like me or not, but I know it always gets back to me. Like, I have followers who are not in the media, but they'll like message me and be like, whoa, somebody just told me like really crazy stuff about you, or somebody's like talking smack. And I had to tell them, like, please don't tell me, like, I don't care. But it's often that people say, like, they talk about me not being a professional because I have my hair dyed. And I've like considered now, okay, maybe I'm not gonna dye my hair, because I'm like, if it's that big of a deal where people are commenting about,
please don't consider that.
It gets to me a lot. People are like, oh, she thinks she's not professional. Ellie Setback told one of my friends from Against the Ropes podcast that, like, oh, she's just not professional. You can't be like having purple hair like that. And it made me sad, because I never talked to Ellie, but I also never like had anything with him. I just thought we were like, okay, like, hi, hello, bye, hello,
Right.
So when I heard that, I was like, oh, like, it did hurt my feelings, because I'm like, oh man, like,
here's my opinion, like, and I I realize that I'm about to compliment you a lot, but the one thing that I like about you, and honestly like, because it's engaging. If I didn't like it, I would be just not paying attention. But I do pay attention to you just because you're being so authentically, and I publicly say that on Twitter as well. You're being so authentic self. Like you're really trying. You are being yourself, and you are. If you want to dye your hair, you're doing this. If you want to like change the hair color, you're doing this. If you want to say something, you're doing this, and that's why it makes you very real. And that's why I care about what you write. That's why I care about your opinion. Whereas if you would be more of like, I have to go by the book, and I have to like, not dye my hair, or maybe not say certain things, or so, like that would be just like, you would be just another, gray member of the media, where it would be like, well, you'd have to like really struggle more. Like for me personally, I would need to try more to identify myself with you, right? So that I care about what you think. But because you really personify that human being, that just being herself, kind of makes me more interested in what you have to say. And that's why,
Well,
I
I
don't
do
know, I
appreciate
really don't
that a
sign
lot.
up. Yeah, I don't sign up with what they say about like, you have to uh, you know be a certain
Yeah.
way. The only thing you have to be like, I feel like, is just, well, not you in particular, but like in general in this profession, I would be just be respectful. Like that's the only
Mhm.
thing that I would value
Yeah, of
in a
course.
profession, and respectful, ethical, and professional. That's the only things that I would actually value. But everything else, like, just I don't think that someone can tell another person what to do.
I think my struggle too is, you talk about Twitter. Like I'm very um just I'm always on Twitter. Like I'm very, very attached to Twitter. And that's where I think people who are following me because of boxing content,
Hmm.
they're so used to whoever they follow who is boxing content being solely boxing content, that I feel like that also kind of gets me away from people taking me seriously, because they're like, oh, well, she's not just boxing. She likes other things. And it's hard for me to tell people like, yes, I'm passionate about other things. And I'm not just all the time going to tweet boxing. And a lot of people tell me, well, this is why you'll never be, and they always mention this people.
Hmm.
You're never gonna be like Christina Pancha. This is why you'll never be Christina Pancha. This is why you'll never have the same job. This is why you'll never be like Cynthia. This is why you'll never be like Michelle. And I
Hmm.
get that. I'm like, damn. And I told you, that's what I'm like, maybe I should dye my hair, because I'm like, damn. I go through weeks where I do really filter what I want to say. Like I'll just tweet boxing. I'll just won't tweet at all, because I feel like maybe it's something to consider, right? When people do tell you these things, that you can't be so opinionated, you can't
Hmm.
bring up race stuff and women stuff into boxing. Like that's not how you get welcome. You don't get the welcome wagon
Hmm.
if you bring up usually like issues surrounding other things into boxing. So, or just talk about other things besides boxing.
Hmm.
So I do consider those things. I do take it into consideration when people tell me those things. When people say, well, this is why you'll never be that. This is why, and I'm like, dang, but I do want to be that. Like I do
Right.
want to write for ESPN. And they
Hmm.
don't have any women writers for boxing. And they're like, I'm really good friends with one of the media guys at ESPN, and he's like, well, Disney owns ESPN, so you wouldn't have that big of a shot because of your content. Like you aren't too outspoken, basically.
Hmm.
So it is. That's why I appreciate the compliments, and I do think so too. That's what I thought. I'm like, oh well, I'm more myself, and I hope that me being myself gets more relaxed interviews out of the fighters. But I do think that I do take into consideration that people may think, oh, like she is, and then when I tweet certain things about, other things
Hmm.
like race and minorities, I do a lot of advocacy for minorities. People don't like that. And like, I feel also with people looking at me as a girl, and I don't usually dress like in dresses and stuff like that. I feel
Hmm.
like people also don't take me seriously because
Hmm.
of that. To like interviews at the gym, I wear like leggings and a t-shirt with like a boxing t-shirt that someone gave me. Like a
Right.
fighter gave me a t-shirt, or like one of my friends has a podcast. I always rap them. Like that's what I do. And people in the comments, you'll say that like all the other journalists are wearing dresses and heels, and you're wearing like a t-shirt. Like
Hmm.
step it up. And I'm like, damn. Like I
Right.
always think like, dang, why didn't I think of that like later? Or what I take into consideration that people are giving me feedback, and maybe I should take it into consideration. A lot of struggles too is I'm scared that because I'm a woman in the media, people won't take me seriously with fighters because like, oh, this girl's just a groupie. And I can see how people can be like, oh, you know, more hesitant to give women an interview or let a woman into their gym. So what I do whenever I visit gyms, I take a guy with me, like a friend who's also, you know, in a podcast, and his name's Chris. He's my friend Chris from Against the Ropes. I always tell him, can you please come? I don't want to just show up by myself because it makes me feel like they're more hesitant.
Right.
Give me an interview or just be like she's gonna be a distraction, or there's rumors, and it always gets to me that I told you, Michelle Joy Phelps, successful woman, a badass woman, and people are always like, hey, did you know Michelle Joy Phelps dated this guy? And I'm like, okay, like are you doing that? I'm like, no, but why does it matter? And same with other women who are not as, you know, they're more of a behind the camera women. Like I get so many comments and people are like, oh, you know, she's doing this and that with the fighters. And I'm like, I didn't know that, but don't tell, like, I don't think it's true. But I think those are my biggest issues, like with the whole media, you know, it's my personality, my content that's not just boxing all the time. And then people thinking, she's a girl, like she might just be here with different intentions than to get an interview. So it's crazy, like both in media row with other media members and trying to get stuff from like fighters and you know, trainers and stuff like that. I remember when I went to the Robert Garcia gym, a lot of people told me like, how did you get in there? He doesn't like girls in his gym. And I'm just like, they never told me that. Like I felt weird after because they're like, he doesn't really like girls in his gym. How did you get in there? And I'm like, well, I was there for Virgil Ortiz at the time, and I'm mutual with his dad, and I'm mutual with Virgil too. So I just asked him like, hey, can I come? Obviously I brought like a male friend, but I have them, and also there I talked to Robert, you know, I said, thank you for letting me come into your gym to talk to your fighter. But it wasn't after that people are like, how did you get into his gym? Like you can catch interviews with his fighters elsewhere, but he doesn't let women like that. That's what I heard. At least that's what they told me. If it's true or not, I don't know how the validity of this, but people told me so many times, like, how did you get in there? And I'm just like, whoa, like I didn't know. And it made me feel bad because again, I didn't go through him. I went through Virgil Sr. And then so I'm just like, it's a really weird thing to navigate when me just starting and then being a woman and
right, but at the same time, you took your shot. You know, texted the right people, and you just asked, and basically asked and you shall receive, and that's how you gain access. Not by just, you know, by basically being professional and just, hey, can I join the gym and, you know, do my work. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's weird, like the fact that you have to bring a guy with yourself just to protect yourself, or just to like have like that insurance that, you know, so there's no second thoughts about that. I mean, I hope like at some point things would be more lax in that regard, so you don't have to like worry about that. But I completely understand where you're coming from, and I feel like this is very smart on your end as well to actually have, you know, the third party with you to sort of to arbitrage this whole tension in the room. That's another smart thinking that you do as well. Like I wouldn't think about that, to be honest, but again, I'm not a woman, so I don't even know how this works, right? It's weird because like some people talk shit behind the back, but at the same time people talk about you, like, right? So it's a weird thing, like, people don't take you seriously, for example, like according to what they say, but at the same time all they do is talk about you, right? They try to like come up with rumors about this. Do you struggle with this? Do you feel because again, like it sucks, especially when you're reading those comments, for example, or you're taking those feedbacks, you have to filter, right? You have to like, okay, well, this filter, this comment is bullshit. I don't care about that one. This is a constructive criticism. I'll read it. I'll consider it. And so like, there's this filtering, but we're not machines, right? We still have feelings and all of that. Do you have this internal debate? Do you actually have some sort of a scale or metrics, or where you are emotionally, or does that really like, does that really difficult for you to take?
Yeah, it went to a point where I'm just not gonna read the comments. Like I'll let people say what they want to say, and because at one point I was responding, not to the mean comments really, but I was responding in ways like, please comment about the interview and the contents of the interview. Because whenever I do an interview with a guy, like it's just like, oh, they're fucking after, or she's feeling him. I'm like, it's really weird and creepy, especially when like there's like younger fighters. I feel really creeped out when people always put that in the comments. And I used to write back all the time. Like I would be go, no, like just focus on the interview. Don't talk about me. And then I started to just not be in the interviews. And then so many media members like Cynthia, she's like, no, you have to be in it. She's like, you have to, people want to see the voice that, you know, is behind the interview. So you have to also let yourself know so that if media PR people run across your video in another, you know, way, they know who it is. And maybe they, you know, recognize you at like an event, and you know, it's easier to introduce yourself. So I was like, oh, okay. And I would just stop reading the comments because it made me uncomfortable, or it made me like a little, oh, here we go. Let me look through the comments and filter stuff out. So now I'm just like, I'm not even gonna look at them. I'm just gonna let people say whatever, and hopefully, I mean, it's still, I mean, it's content, and they're making a comment. So I'm like, okay, at least it looks like I have a lot of comments. So I'm like, okay.
Obviously, I would assume Cynthia Conte is someone that you take seriously in terms of like a feedback, or you know, some sort of a criticism. Are there any other people that you're sort of in touch with that mentor you, or kind of like just give you the feedback? You don't have to like name their names, but like, do you have like certain like circle of people that you rely on to like give you like an actual feedback that you can take seriously?
Well, Cynthia, she's my main one. Like and you mentioned, you know, being a little bit different. And Cynthia, she's all charisma. Like her interview with fighters, a lot of people say, oh, well, she's not, you know, it's more joking around. But yeah, it's, people will remember that. People will not be like, oh, here comes another boring interview about how's my camp training going. Like, she's very, very fun. You can see her energy. You can see it.
Yes.
And that
I saw it
passionate.
firsthand. Yeah, we went to Big Bear together, and you know, she was interviewing fighters and I was translating, and I could totally see like the energy, and she was trying to make it engaging and different. So yeah,
exactly. So she's someone I look up to because I relate to that. I mean, you know, like she makes, I want to be like her because she makes us successful at, she's not like this cookie cutter version of what people want media women to be, but also she's not, but she's taken seriously, you know, she's not like disregarding. So I'm like, like she is my mold. Like I want to be like her. So mostly her. I do have like some people on Twitter who mentor me, and I love him. I don't think I can say his name, but he is a great guy, and he tells me feedback in every video, and he's an Emmy winner for some of his work, and so I take him very seriously. You know, he's older, and he's like, hey Lily, this interview was really great, but tone it down on you making comments after. Just go to the next question, because sometimes I make like really long comments after, because I feel like at the point I'm having a conversation, so I'm like, oh, by the way, blah blah. So he's like, when you're doing interviews like that are like media, he's like, try to do them, just get your point across, because sometimes PR people will be like, oh, she's talking too much and not getting to the point, so move it along, right? So he's like, to try to, when you're at a gym, he's like, and you have all the free time, like do it, and the fighters free time. But when you're like at a media event, he's like, try to not have commentary, like after a question or after their answer, like let them just talk and go on with your day. Oh, great. Like, I love it. So him, and then Ben from Fight Hype, he reached out to me, and he like that made me feel so good. He reached out to me, and he was telling me like, hey, I really like your energy, same thing. Do you want to work together sometimes? Like, send me your stuff, I'll send you like money. And he's like, because a lot of times, especially he's just starting, it's like, hey, can you work for us? But sorry, it's free.
Right.
Like, it's not paid, and it's like, like I'm already doing, like I'd rather put the energy into my content, you know, because I will get, you know, the YouTube at least revenue of the month. Exactly. And like, I'm like, oh no, you know, like no offense, but no. Or other times they're like, oh, you know, we might pay you, but we might not. And with Ben, it was so like, bam, like I'm gonna give you like the revenue for the video. And I thought like he would just give it to me that 1 month, but every month I just get new PayPals from him, and I'm like, that's so weird. I'm like, this guy's giving me money every month for the video that was like the videos, you know. It's not like he's just like a one-time just for this month. So I'm like, he actually takes, you know, I don't know, what do you call that, like the analytics, and he just
Right.
He's
I'm
looking at
assuming.
how
I'm
much he's
assuming.
making.
Right. I'm assuming the video is on YouTube and it acquires views,
Oh,
and he gives you like the portion of the
yeah.
revenue he just deposits to you.
And he's also he's not just like, oh, here's your money. No, he always gives me feedback too. He tells me the same thing, like that you did a little bit. It's more like, be yourself. He's like, don't try to be cookie cutter. Be yourself, and it's okay. The rest will come. And I talked to him really a lot about the comments and me feeling insecure about being a woman in the videos. And he's like, yeah, he's like, trust me, you're gonna get negative comments, especially on my videos. He's like, because this is a huge platform. He's like, so you will get hate comments, but just don't. He's like, don't ignore it. Just do your work, and that's it. And he's like he's an awesome guy, and I never thought that I would have somebody to actually again give me feedback. And it's great. I really appreciate that from him, that he actually takes the time to not just be like, okay, thanks for the video. It's like, hey, okay, this, and that, or now do this, and it's better if you take this approach. It's like, I really welcome feedback all the time. If it's nice, good, like I like a nicer tone, but sometimes I do get like my friends who are like, stop doing this, and more stern, but I'm like, okay, either way, like I'll take it into consideration, whatever feedback I get.
So it's interesting. We started talking about money. Obviously, this is something, this is a profession. You have to figure out how to have a consistent and safe income on that. Unfortunately, it's not very easy in boxing to actually earn money if you're not within, the high-profile boxing circles. How does this work for you? Obviously, you just mentioned the Fight Hype partnership that you had. Is there anything that, I guess what I'm asking is, the situation is kind of meh in terms of how you make money. How like professional reporters make money. That's what I mean. And like, and you mentioned like you want to work for ESPN, you want to be like associated with that brand, but it's so difficult. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what's the future holds for not just you, but for personalities in media like yourself, for journalists and writers? What's going to happen next? And what kind of, I mean, I don't know, how do you see yourself in the future in this profession if you are
That's a
staying in
hard
boxing?
question. That's a hard question because I knew that me coming into, writing, a lot of people shit on like my degree. They're like, oh, come on, you're not gonna make any money. I wasn't planning on doing sports. I was just gonna write for some newspaper and like get like bare minimum. Like I wasn't worried about that. Again, like I do a lot of advocacy work. So that was my main thing that I wanted to do. With boxing, it's more like people expect a lot of free labor. And I get outside of the boxing thing, yeah, you have freelancing, and of course you got to get your name across and you have to start somewhere, right? But the extent that this happens in boxing is ridiculous. Like everybody, if I had $1 for every time somebody hit me up like, hey, like, can you do content for us? Like, oh, we love your content, can you please like write for us? Or this really, a guy who has like a really nice boxing page hit me up one time. No, he actually tweeted something like, I don't have like a lot of women sports writers. I would, if you know anyone, like tag them here. And so many people tagged me on it. So he actually emailed, like I gave my email, he emailed me, we're talking, like, I'm like, oh my God, this is a big website. Like I'm definitely, maybe, per article base or like per click base, whatever, but I'm just excited. And when it came down to it, he's like, well, I can't pay you because I'm already paying my other staff writers. And I felt really annoyed, not because I wish they would be more transparent, like right away, like, hey, this is unpaid, but it's good exposure, like unpaid, but we will promote your work. We will give you good reference, stuff like that. No, he's like, well, I can't pay you because I'm already paying my other staff writers. And in my head, I'm just like, I'm a staff writer too. Like, if you want me to cover these many events or do this much work, then no, it's not, I wouldn't want that.
Right.
And it felt like, oh, well, you clearly don't want a woman journalist in your team that much then, if you're not willing to at least provide some sort of compensation. So that was out of the way, but a lot. If I had $1, I wouldn't probably be pretty well off. I don't like that in the boxing community. Also, it's harder also in the boxing community, just in general, not just as a woman, because a lot of people criticize YouTube journalists. They say, oh, you're just a YouTube journalist. Like, so many comments about stuff like that. Like, you're just a YouTuber. Who cares? Like, who cares about what your content is? And I get it.
So who said this? Who actually, like, I'm not saying who in particular, but what other people who say that, are they in the industry? Are they the reporters and writers,
Yeah.
the old school?
It's either old school or people who are like, who produce content but are not in media.
Uh-huh.
So people who have podcasts about boxing but don't necessarily cover events, is what I'm saying. People with like opinion-based content, boxing content.
Right.
They're like, oh, whatever YouTube media, whatever fucking like new media, that's everybody can start a YouTube channel, and everybody can, and it's true, you know, everybody can start a YouTube channel. Anyone can do that. And people usually, again, in the boxing community, they don't really treasure, you know, like you said, ethical behavior or like respect. They don't really value that. You know, as a person who graduated on this, I go to like a lot of websites. I'm like, oh, like this is grammar sucks, or I'm like, oh, this is not an AP style, like, and these people are making it, why can't I? Like, it's true, anybody can, as long as it's engaging, and as long as, you know, because a lot of people, let's bring back Ellie said, like, people hate him, but hey, he's doing something right. He's engaging. He has his people that
who are you talking about?
And loyal, right?
Who are you talking about?
Ellie Setback.
Okay.
He receives a lot of hate, and I get it, but he might not ask like the most bomb questions, but something works for him, and whatever it is, he made it work for him. So people don't care that he's a YouTuber. People just want to see the content, and I do get that a lot. It's so weird in this community, right? In the boxing community, where you're either like up here with like a media, you're at the top, ESPN, you know, even other sports sites, or you're like a YouTuber media. Right. And then you're like kind of in between, because you're YouTube, but you're very, very successful, right? And you already have an engaging fan base, or, you know, an audience that will come back, and you will continue to get a consistent amount of clicks at least, or, you know, like have really decent numbers. And then there's like people at the bottom. So it's so hard. And for you to get at the top, at first I'm like, yeah, sure, let me just do free shit for everybody. But at the point, that's why I'm like, no, I have my own brand that I'm creating. I want to, if I'm doing work and it's free, I'm just gonna do it for me. I'm not going to get money from somebody it's growing their content, it's growing their page, not mine. And I'm pretty sure they already got all the help they can. I have a friend who is a woman too, who was in media for a little bit. I think she moved somewhere else out of California. But she told me that the publication she was working for paid her $50 for an event. And in my head, I'm like, what? Like for you to,
I bet that barely will cover an Uber or something.
Samir, you know that people like the parking when we go to fights. The parking alone is like $20-30.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And I think this happened at the Hollywood Fight Nights, one of the last Hollywood Fight Nights. She was there, and she's like, yeah, man, I make he pays me $50. And in my head, I'm like, just the park over there, it's like that much. I just couldn't. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? And eventually, we see how do I see myself in the future? Realistically, I'm like, I'm gonna have to work really hard, and you know, maybe I won't stay in boxing media. Maybe I'll stay with my brand to like write about stuff here and there, and just more opinionated articles, since I'm not gonna have the sources to get, you know, news, you know, like breaking news in the boxing community. But I don't think I'll ever stop creating boxing content, even if I do choose to do something else. I feel like I'm always going to be attached to just now, because you talk about how this started as a hobby, but then went to just more of a commitment. I feel like I already have that commitment, you know, that yes, I don't get, you know, a bunch of views, but I do get some people who are also very encouraging. So I'm like, hey, like, I'm just going to make it for those people that do like my content, even if it's not that many. But if it were up to like me and like some utopian world, I would love to eventually have not just my brand, just have a collective site of women journalists. And it's big enough that I'm not like being cheap with somebody, to where I'm making enough content that it gets me good revenue, and I'm paying people properly for working with me. And I would mostly want to choose all women, because you have no idea how many times people are like, oh, you're a girl and you like boxing, that's awesome. Like, not a lot of girls like sports. And I'm like, no, a lot of girls like sports.
Mm-hmm.
Most girls like sports. The thing is that whenever we bring up sports, it's like, whatever, shut up, like your opinion doesn't matter. Or they start quizzing you. Dudes have like this weird mechanism, like automatic questioning right after that. I'm like, oh, you like boxing? Oh, so who did this person fight in this year and how many rounds did it go? Like it's like almost like, really? I don't believe you. Let me quiz you on literally everything. So I always tell people like, no, women love sports. Let me show you. And I want to have just women writers and them do so good in their job. And also, like you say, okay, if I can't work for ESPN because my hair is purple, because I promote stuff that they don't, necessarily want to associate with, which again, as a corporation or as a big platform, I totally understand. I totally understand. Let me make mine. And let me have women who, I don't know, look like whatever they want to look like and still have a voice and are still good at what they do. Let me change that. Let me show people that all these women do like sports, and it would be not just boxing. It'd be, if it were up to me, I want to have eventually just like a network almost of just women reporting on sports. And I feel like, why isn't that a thing? Like, dudes love to sexualize women. Like, I'm not saying, oh, a girl in bikini, like the usual props that they have in a sports show where it's like some girl in a bikini just standing there. They do that in Mexico a lot. Sorry, I went off topic. But I want to have actual like women. Like, why isn't that a thing? Dudes like love women, right? And they love women that love sports. Mix them two bitches up and create something. Like, imagine just like an ESPN, and every segment of different sports is just knowledgeable women on sports and professional engaging interviews. Like, that'd be so awesome. I don't know why people haven't done that yet, and I want to do that eventually. If I do stay in the sports route, and eventually my content, hopefully when coronavirus is gone, I'm gonna try so hard to get my content out there and become more of a known person. Not like in the, oh, I want to like people to know who I am, but I'm more like, oh, her content is awesome type of thing. Right. And bring more girls along. But I don't want to be that person. I'm struggling with that now. Like, I can't pay you. I would hate to take somebody's time. Of course, everybody's passionate about stuff, but people deserve some sort of compensation, So I would want to do this when I'm at least making enough money to where I can get somebody and not be being a cheapo with them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think this is a wonderful idea, and I'm actually excited about it. I want to kind of follow your path and see where it's going to bring you and how you're going to develop that. That's actually sounds very exciting. And I'm actually like, I don't agree with the old school media where it's like, if you write for a website or a newspaper, then you are the, if you're working for this authoritative institution, aka a newspaper, then you are sort of you're the shit, basically. You know how to do it, and you made it. It's kind of like, okay, cool, but like, show me the numbers, right? Why is your newspaper doesn't make any money? Why is your publication, show me the numbers of your website. How many clicks do you get? How many visits? Whereas like, here's my YouTube channel, here's how many views I have. Like, it's all there, and you can just calculate, money talks and numbers talk. And like, that's why I never buy into the idea of like, well, they don't take me seriously. They don't think that I made it. Like, it's just like, okay, cool, but like, have you seen my numbers? Like, oh, you think YouTube is not serious? Okay, but have you seen my numbers? Have you seen how many hits I have? Like, let's say I have like 5 million on that video. Like, how many views did your article got, right? Stuff like that. It's just like, that's why I never buy into this kind of narrative. It's mostly like, it's very insecure kind of way of saying like, we don't like this new world order, and like to be like stay.
Of course.
Exactly, and that's why it's just like, okay, cool, to the point is like, okay, boomer, like, good for you. But but at the same time, we have like, what I would say, we have like around maybe like hardcore, we have like 4 to 5 YouTube channels about boxing that are like over 100,000 subscribers, or like 200,000. Like, so it's not that many. Like, it's the field is still uncharted for like the media online on YouTube or any other outlets, develop an Instagram or YouTube. So it's just like, you'd be like not very wise not to get into YouTube, and for like the boxing journalist or writer not to actually have like a channel and create content there. Like, like, you are missing out on revenue if you are all about that business, or you're all about that content or education. You're missing out on that. That's on you. and I'm not taking you seriously for that. I don't know. I have more of like that attitude, but I
Right.
also realize that boxing, a lot of boxing media and sport of boxing, it's all about the past days, which is kind of like annoying for me. Like, with all due respect to, to all the, legends from the past in terms of, the fighters, there's a lot of like reminiscing. Like, remember how boxing used to be? Remember the days?
Yeah.
Remember like
A lot of comparing to.
the old fights? Remember how like it was all business? It was no like, well, it was like all like serious, like the best fought the best, but now it's
No
all,
no ducking, no
yeah.
marinating. Yeah, it's a
Well, in
big topic.
reality, I mean, stuff was even more, messed up than it is today. What happened in boxing, back in 80s, 70s, and 90s, and early 2000s. Like, so it's kind of like, okay, cool, but I don't know. That's why the whole industry itself, it's really slow in
Hmm.
terms of stepping into this new age. And I feel like people like you actually push that envelope. They actually push the sport itself into this new age. That's why I don't know. I just don't know. I never sign up to those kind of like, I'm not taking you seriously because you're not
Yeah.
getting. That's why I feel like, and I was about to ask you, like, you should start your own thing, and I didn't even have to ask. You already have a plan, and so that's just wonderful.
Yeah, like with YouTube, and that's another thing. I was really hesitant because again, insecurities and me being a girl, and I feel like no, people are not gonna care what I say. But we live in an age where we can monetize the internet.
Yeah.
Everybody's on the internet. Everybody's watching stuff. Everybody's looking for stuff to watch. And I think I mentioned this on Twitter previously that I don't just watch one interview. Like if there's a press conference, I don't just watch one interview and be like, oh, cool, that was nice. Let me close my laptop. No, what else did they say? Let me see who else asked them separate things. And if he mentioned this, then maybe somebody who was behind the person next up followed up on that. Let me check. You mentioned about, there's, like 5 big boxing, and yeah, they're big for a reason. They got good content. But I also want to see other angles, like not just as a journalist who wants to see other people's, questions and just other angles that they took for the interview. I love the sport, so I want to know what else did they say, right? So yeah, I at one point I'm like, yeah, same thing. I'm like, you'd be dumb not to start something in at least, even if it's $200, $300 a month. It's something for you,
Yeah.
just giving your content. Like it's literally so dumb to not anybody, like literally, but just start, like you said, it's a hobby, but it can come, like eventually when you get the views and you hit the subscribe, you are going to get there and you will get growing and growing and growing. My issue was like you said, the whole taking seriously part. I agree with everything you said. The thing is just like, show me the numbers. Like right now I can't get good numbers unless I get good access to fighters, which I can't get because if I don't get approved because I don't have the numbers, I can't get the access. So it's like a cycle of like, well, I want the access to the fighters. I can get content to get the numbers. But if I'm not approved to the events, then I can't get it. So that's why I do a lot of the gym interviews where I go to gyms. And I mean, I'm a gym rat anyway. Like I would always be at gyms, just talking to the fight. I love gym gossip. And I don't mean like gossip like, oh, this fight. No, like, damn, this fight was almost made. What? Really? You don't say nothing though. I live for that, but don't tell anybody. I'm like, I won't. But it's awesome. Like off the record, this guy turned down this fight with,
it's great to be an insider,
like,
and know that information.
I'm like, and I can't be like, hey, this happened,
Right.
But I love it. I love being trusted with information. So I'm like, ooh, and I just love the energy and as a boxing journalist, but also as a fan, it made me I was never one to call people bums and shit. Like I hate people call fighters bums. I hate it.
Too.
But when you go to the gyms and you see how hard these dudes work, even the dudes who are the contenders, who they're just there to go the distance with the guys, the rugged guys, like they put so much effort into their training and their sweat and blood and everything. I mean, pretty sure you've been in Big Bear. Like you didn't really witness a sparring session unless there was blood or spit or sweat on your face after. Like you're just there, like oh okay. Like it's a great atmosphere, and that's how I get my stories. That's how I get my content. And I wanted to start this right before Corona started. Like I mentioned earlier, prospects who also need like some exposure. Obviously, I'm not the best person to count for exposure because I don't have that many, big people, like, a lot of followers. But also I feel like, okay, people will be like, oh, she knew that guy was going to be something
Mm-hmm.
before, or I remember that guy because she interviewed him, right? And I wanted to make like, because things, I told you, I don't like rewriting news somebody else wrote. I do pre-fight or post-fight stuff, but I'm like, let me mix it up. I want to do a contender of the week or prospect of the week type of article, and every week I do a feature story on an up-and-comer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how awesome would that be? Just like both video, of them training, an interview, but also just a feature story on like an up-and-comer. And have a prospect of the week. I'm like, that's such a good idea. And I already had like my first guy. I was gonna do Diego Pacheco. I had already talked to him about it. I was gonna do Michael Dutchover, who fights on Showbox. I'm like, this is such a good idea. These guys like are also so nice that they won't say no to you. So I'm like,
right. And you also, let's be honest, you're also investing in that relationship because you're meeting them while they're still starting early, and then when they gotta make it big, you will have access to them as well. So it's kind of like this compound relationship kind of thing. So I feel like that's very smart.
I tested that with Virgil, because with Virgil Ortiz, I used to, when I was with True Boxing Heads, I would cover a lot of the fights of his at the Velasco, and very intimate settings, kind of like the Avalon. Yeah. Very similar. Intimate setting. It's great atmosphere. You can tell it's the hardcore fans going to that fight because it's smaller up and comers, and Virgil used to fight in those fights, and I would always interview him, and I would ask him like just random stuff. He would wear Whataburger shirts. I'm like, hey, what do you like better, Whataburger or In-N-Out? Like I would just ask him stuff outside of interviews, like. And recently, I think I asked him something like, oh, when he was gonna fight in the Canelo fielding undercard, he wasn't able to because he had just gotten eye surgery or something like that, and the commission didn't allow it. But I was one of the first to find out. He told me, he's like, hey, don't tell anybody, but I'm actually fighting the Canelo undercard. And I was like, that's so great that he like trusted me with that information. Yeah. To not tell anybody else. Absolutely. And then I think I told him like, hey, I'm like, can I bug you for an interview on your next fight? I know you're still in Texas, but when you come back. And he mentioned something that really made me feel like, okay, what I'm doing is kind of working, or it is working, because he's like, I remember when you used to interview me at the Velasco, or something along those words. Like, I remember you used to interview me like back then. He's like, he's like, I'll let you cut anybody. That's what he told me. And I'm like, wow, okay, it's building this relationships, it's building this like relationship, other than like, it's a professional relationship, but it's also like almost, I don't know if maybe I'm being too corny, but it is kind of like to me, it's kind of like a friendship. Right. Where they trust you not just as a professional, but they want, I don't know how to explain it, but it made me feel good. That's all I want. Like, it made me feel like, okay, I think I understand. I want to do that with not just give them exposure and try to have people look at their story and look at them outside of just who they are in the ring, which is why they would be like more feature stories. But I want to eventually like just know that I have their back right now, and I'm always gonna, like, especially as starting fighters. And a lot of people, especially in the boxing world, we know the fans are, they're like, oh, this guy's a bum, or after he loses, man, that sucks. But not everybody in the boxing is going to make it as some big champion, and that's okay. We're gonna have guys who are just contenders. We're gonna have guys who are, even though they don't win as much, they're gonna always give a great fight. We're gonna have guys who are just there to get knocked out. We're gonna have guys that are just there to kind of like as gatekeepers. Everybody plays a role in boxing, and I want to show that everybody in the boxing community should be appreciated, not just the champions, not just the ones who already made it big and are so making it big. Guys who are also maybe not that great, maybe they're not going to make it as far, but they're going to give a good fight, and they're going to keep giving the fans great fights, or putting their all into it. They deserve a story too, you know what I mean? Absolutely. Lily, we've been talking for more than an hour, and I have I have yet so much to cover in terms of what I wanted to talk about. But maybe we can do another one of these conversations, and maybe talk more about your life and your aspiration. Would that be okay with you? I feel like I told you when you messaged me, I'm like, I talk a lot. I'm sorry. No, that's actually great. I love it. It's because we have so much, we covered so much stuff, and it's actually very important stuff, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So I would be so happy to have you one more time on my podcast, and we can talk more about this as well. Would you be open to that? No, most definitely. It felt like more of a awesome conversation too. I needed the social, like some social good thing going on, because being locked up in quarantine, ain't it? This felt great, actually. Lily, how can people find you? On Twitter, I am at Lilly Ulloa, but my name's so weird, so I would have to spell it out. Lilly Ulloa Ulloa. So that's my Twitter, and then on YouTube is Chicana Boxing, and another hard way to spell it, it's XICANA, and then just boxing on YouTube, and then ChicanaBoxing.com as well for my articles. I haven't written anything because there's nothing going on, but that's where once everything resumes, my content will be there as well, and mostly on the YouTube as well.
Perfect. Great, Lilly. Thanks so much for being on this podcast. Please stay online. I will end this episode and we'll talk afterwards. Thank you so much.
I'm not gonna go. Okay. Thanks.